Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gannon, alongside my partner, Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. For another chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at Just Saying, no GWJS for article and video updates. And don't forget to check us out on Spotify and get us in your ears at Just Saying Football. We are now in week 6. Season's flying by.
Yep.
Obviously, some injury updates on my end with the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson is on IR for 4 weeks at least, and our season's probably not heading in the direction we all thought compared to last year, and that's fine because he deserves to get all the rest he needs in recovery because we're going to give him the entire state of Minnesota in his contract.
Yeah, no, a lot of people injured, obviously, too. Anthony Richardson, Colts first round pick. A lot of teams being affected by injury. Elijah Vera Tucker out with the Achilles, huge blow for the Jets offensive line. This is week 5. This is when things start, getting tough. There are these, things that happen and they affect, a team's entire season going forward. And you can kind of see, going forward as we go through today's games that, it does definitely affect the landscape of this week. And, how we believe it's, probably going to go in certain games is really based off, some of these factors. And, some of these teams that could be blowing out these teams have the injury. And some of these teams that, have an injury could be at a disadvantage, for a trap game this week. So we gotta keep an eye out for all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kick this week 6 off. Just also a little bit of notes. Another bye week for some teams: Green Bay Packers, Pittsburgh Steelers. If you have them on your rosters for fantasy, bench them. All right, let's jump this into our blowout games. So we have the New York Giants making their way to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Over under here at 44.5. It's in our blowout category because the Bills are favored by -14. I'm going with Buffalo right off the bat. Daniel Jones might not be in. Evan Neal is just not blocking guys half the time. It's been a rough one for New York. Doesn't matter who's going to be back there. They're giving up sacks left and right.
Yeah, we even talked about Buffalo last week a lot with the London game and how good they were and how, last week the Giants were, inevitably kind of stuck with a blowout in Miami. And now they're kind of going into the same thing this week. It's very tough, too, because, like the Giants, we had high expectations. We see them in all these primetime games. And now you see how they've been playing over the last couple of weeks. It's tough for it. That's why Buffalo favored by 2 touchdowns. Battle of NY is not looking great. It's looking like, one of those things where you can easily just say, I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we both are. Let's keep us moving along in our blowout category. So we have the Carolina Panthers making their way to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Over under here, 48.5. Miami's favored in this one by -13.5. I'm locking in Miami. I'm assuming you're doing the same. This team is just putting up points despite the Devon A-Chain injury, where he's now also on the IR due to a knee injury. I still think they're still going to just be firing on all cylinders. Tua, though, no more turning the ball over. We saw those mistakes last week and they got bailed out, but it won't happen again against better teams.
Yeah, Carolina is allowing about an average of like 4 touchdowns a game through the first 5 weeks, so expect Miami at home to just go off in this game. Right now it's the Dolphins are on a pace kind of unprecedented. They have the best offense by far in rushing. They are running about 185 yards per game, 327 yards per game through the air. The only team over 500 yards a game this season. It's incredible what they're doing.
Yeah, the Dolphins have already broke the 2000 Rams record for most offensive yards through the first 5 weeks. The record was 2,568. So just put this into perspective. They're averaging, a little over 500 yards per game. It's pretty insane. But let's keep this moving along in our blowout category. So the Arizona Cardinals making their way to LA to take on the Rams. Rams are favored in this one by -6.5. Over under here, 48.5. Puka is there. Cooper Kupp has returned. What are your thoughts on this one? I'm locking in LA.
Definitely locking in LA. They're at home, division rival. We've been saying it all the time that Arizona's playing better than we thought. But now, the Rams, I got to say, I thought that they went kind of toe-to-toe with the Eagles, who are one of the best teams in the NFC. I don't think that they are on where the Niners are with this, but I do think the Rams could be a playoff team. 6.5, I think straight up, they could totally take that. Cooper Kupp looked like he came back 100% last week.
Yeah, I could agree with you more. It's like Arizona's in a weird spot. It doesn't seem like Kyler Murray is going to be sticking around with the team.
Yeah.
But Josh Dobbs,
some reports that he may not be back at all next year.
right? But Josh Dobbs has only been serviceable. He hasn't done like enough to say I am the full-time starter franchise guy. So curious to see what's going to happen in Arizona as the season continues. Just everyone keep that in mind. All right, let's move this along into our meh categories because we have the Baltimore Ravens making their way to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Over under here of 40.5. Baltimore's favored this by -4. This one is in London, so it'll be early in the morning. Get ready for that one. Baltimore's coming off of a tough loss last week. What are your thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, so these London games, I think they've been pretty entertaining so far. The Titans, they've been better than a lot of people would expect, going into this one. But the Ravens, this is such a huge opportunity for them to win the game. This would make them 4-2. That would really give them an edge over Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati, who's struggling. So I think the Baltimore Ravens technically go on the road in London against the Titans, who are technically home. And, I think they cover that for no problem. I do like the under on this one, though. I think both teams traveling. It's not kind of like Jacksonville staying over 2 weeks. It's Baltimore and Tennessee. They just came out of some pretty tough games last week. But I'm going with Baltimore. And I think, this is a great opportunity for the Baltimore defense to shut down a guy like Derrick Henry because they're the third best defense in scoring right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also locking in Baltimore. I just want to see Rashad Bateman making those catches, though. There were some beautiful passes his way. One of them that could have maybe been a touchdown. And just went right out of his hands. So I think that would really help this passing game get going. Like you're saying, it's a tight division right now. They took their loss to the Steelers last week, which is rough. Good audible by Kenny Pickett. If everyone saw Matt Canada's reaction also on that play, just something to watch.
You can tell he did not call that play.
No, he did not. And I think this is a get right game for Baltimore, like you're saying, defensively, after giving up such a huge touchdown and play to George Pickens. But let's keep this moving along. So the San Francisco 49ers making their way to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Over under here of 38.5. San Francisco's favored in this one by -5. Got to be honest, buddy. I'm locking in San Francisco. There's reports that Deshaun Watson with his shoulder injury might be out again, and we saw what happened the last time he was out, despite this Cleveland Browns defense being so good. When it was DTR playing, it just wasn't the same. They weren't able to move the ball effectively. So I'm definitely locking in the 49ers, who are just playing so well. Also, Kyle Shanahan, nice return back to his coaching lineage way back in the day when he was there with Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, good point that out. I mean, this is, not we always like one of the revenge games. This could be, kind of a revenge game for Kyle Shanahan, show out what he could do, against Kevin Stefanski, who's also a great offensive mind. I want to point out, though, the defense. This is going to be, a lower scoring game than, we expect, obviously, from Cleveland. We saw what San Francisco was able to do to Dallas last week. But both these teams, Cleveland right now, their defense, it's something special. If anybody could shut down the Niners statistically, it's looking like the Browns. They've only allowed 787 total yards this season, about, a little less than 200 yards a game. Nobody is even close right now. To give it in perspective, the Niners are giving up about 70 more yards a game than they're third in the league. So this could be a closer game than you think. For me, I weirdly like that Cleveland +5, but I'm going to take the Niners straight up to win.
I like that. I will take the under in this game. I think you're right. I think it could be pretty low scoring. Who knows what the weather's going to be like in Cleveland at the time. All right, moving this right along. Right? And moving this right along. Washington Commanders making their way to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Over under here, 42.5. Atlanta's favored in this one by -2.5. Low spread, but I'm locking in Atlanta. Ritter has not lost a home game since high school. He's 31-0, and Atlanta's finding some rhythm. This is the best game of his career last week. Desmond Ritter by far completed 75% of his passes, threw for 329, threw a passing touchdown, had 4 rushes for 10 yards and another touchdown. So build off of this. That Bijan catch was also incredible.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, I was super excited about the Commanders going into week 3 against the Bills, and ever since then it hasn't really been the same. They've had the Bills, the Eagles, and obviously that crazy game against the Bears last week in prime time on Thursday. They've had some time to prepare for this one, but I do think Atlanta understands that their division is very close right now. They're at home. They have to defend home turf. I do like them in this game. It's going to be a close one. I think this is a get-right game for Sam Howell. He really needs that. But I'll ride with you on the Falcons at home, no problem. I would take the 42.5 too. I take the over on that. I think this is going to be like a pretty back and forth game.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I like that. Moving this right along, we have my Minnesota Vikings making their way to Chicago to take on the Bears. Over under here at 44.5. Minnesota's favored this by -2.5. I mean, I got to go Minnesota as a fan. I think we still have all of the right weapons that can win this game. We still have TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, despite being questionable, I think he's going to play. KJ Osborne's pretty solid. Kirk Cousins is good. Our offensive line is playing pretty well. I'm just worried about our defense and what Justin Fields can do running the ball, but I think this is a winnable game for us. If we lose this game and we drop to 1-5, I don't know if we're going to be able to offload Kirk Cousins because of the contract, right? Yeah. But it'd be great if we get some picks. But aside from that, it gives us potentially a top 5 pick next year. All of a sudden, we're in the Caleb Williams conversation. The direction of how you take this team begins to change, and the conversation narrative begins to change. I think still be competitive. There's still a weird route for us to maybe win the division, and starts with beating the Bears. But man, if we go to 1-5,
2-4 looks a lot better than 1-5, and obviously, things for the Vikings are, they're not as bad as where the Bears are at or where they were at a few weeks ago, but they are trending in a downward direction, unfortunately. However, we talked about some of these teams get a get-right game this week. I think the Vikings do that. They have to go on the road, divisional opponent. It's a tough challenge in and of itself. But the Bears, coming off a win, they've had 11 days to prepare for this game. I do think I don't know. I like what you said. They shift to Addison. They shift to TJ Hawkinson. They're going to have to open up Osborne. Kirk Cousins, this is the second best passing offense in the league for a reason. Right now, they're throwing about 281 yards through the air. That's the second best outside of Miami. And, this is, obviously DJ Moore, we have to note that he's had, 8 catches back-to-back weeks. He's had 121 and 230 over the last 2 weeks, and he has 4 touchdowns over the last week. So it's been, the DJ Moore show as we've been waiting for. But I got to say, the Vikings, they know they got to win this game. I keep saying that every week. And the pressure's on. Pressure's on for a playoff team to get it done. I don't see them giving up as much as I see the Bears doing that. But the Bears, they were 0-4 before they boomed up last week. So we just have to see if they can keep it together.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I'm curious to see how it goes. Again, we'll change the narratives for both of these teams as the season continues. All right, moving this right along with the New Orleans Saints making their way to Houston to take on the Texans. Over under here, 42.5. New Orleans favoring this one by -1.5. CJ Stroud just set the NFL record for a rookie for most pass attempts, 186 down interception. Not saying it's going to happen this weekend, but I like Houston for this one to win, man. I think this is a really good opportunity for them to get a surprise win. There's a reason why it's only -1.5 to New Orleans. And, the Saints have been hit and miss. They were my team to win the South. I said that they had a pretty easy schedule. They get to face a slew of rookies and second-year guys, but it just hasn't quite been there. Last week was a good game for them, defensive touchdown, but I like Houston in this one, surprisingly. They got their home crowd behind them. CJ Stroud wants to give these fans something to cheer about, like he said a few weeks ago, and this is a good team to do it against.
I like that. This is definitely going to be the closest game of the weekend, just with the quarterback situations. I think if Derek Carr were in this, I would be very 100% on the Saints. I will oppose you, though. I will say that I would like to see the Saints get right here. Houston has been great at home. CJ Stroud has been fantastic. He's finding everyone. I know Tank Dell was hurt last week, but I'm interested to see Nico Collins go up against Marshawn Lattimore. The Saints defense presents a bunch of different challenges on all 3 levels, with Cam Jordan and Demario Davis. So they're going to be testing CJ Stroud, which is going to be awesome. Right now, the one thing that is really going to worry me is, can New Orleans keep up with Houston when they've been going off on this? Houston, like you mentioned, with Stroud, the 3rd best passing offense in the league. However, New Orleans, they have the 4th best, passing defense. So this is going to be really on, I think, Dameon Pierce to get things done, and Alvin Kamara. I could see a big rushing game from both these guys, but I like to see the Saints here in control. They're 2-1 on away, so I'll propose you go with the Saints on this one.
All right, I like it. Let's keep this moving along through the Indianapolis Colts, making their way to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Like you mentioned at the very beginning of this one. Oh, sorry, over under here 45.5. Jacksonville favored by -4.5. Like you mentioned at the very beginning of this, Anthony Richardson is on IR. Will not be in for this game. So it's going to be Minshew Mania once again returns to Jacksonville, a little revenge game in this one. And that's why I'm locking Indianapolis right now. We saw him come into the game last week, played pretty well. We saw him get the win earlier on in the season, I think, as well, when he came in. So there was a chance for them to win. Jaguars, Lawrence only 2-3 against, or 3-2, I think, against Indianapolis. There's an opportunity here. He doesn't have necessarily the best record against them than his division.
Yeah, I think I like Jacksonville still on paper. If Anthony Richardson were in this, I would be leaning towards Indianapolis, especially what we saw they were able to do with Sean's best friend Zach Moss, best fantasy friend of the year so far last year. This year, it's like I think one thing that worries me about Jacksonville that people should consider this week is really the London effect that we saw them have last week, where they were comfortable there. Now they have to get kind of like uncomfortable and get back on their schedule the same way they had been with that flight. We've seen teams come off of London games and underperform. But they're at home. I think that they take this one at home. I love what I saw out of Travis Etienne last week. As we saw, he tweeted at himself. He was just like, I played myself a fantasy this week. He had 30-something points in a bunch of formats. So if you started Etienne, you're a happy guy. If you started Jonathan Taylor, though, you were not a happy guy. 15% of snaps. Do they get JT? How many percent of snaps does he get this week, Sean?
I think he gets at least like 30. I think it's going to get ramped up pretty quickly. No.
What about like 40? Because that is like
I would say that's like
play for me. Can you start him in fantasy this week?
I think you have to start him. No matter what.
You have to.
Right.
That's a good point.
And this also could be another.
I want to convince myself to not start.
I know this could be another big Travis Etienne game as well, especially if he continues playing the way that he has. I like that. This could be a well balanced Jaguars team come the playoff season.
Yeah, it's true. It's gonna be interesting, but I want to see how Jacksonville is affected by this. How everything goes. Both the defenses playing pretty good this year. But Minshew, will we have a Minshew Mania game? I don't know.
I hope so. All right, let's move this right along. We have the New England Patriots making their way to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Over under here, 41.5. Vegas favored this by -3. I mean,
41.5. Who's scoring all these points?
I don't know.
Where is?
I think this is just such an ugly game. I'm going with Vegas. This is the worst passing offense in the league and scoring offense in the Patriots. They only average 11 points per game, and Vegas has the worst man coverage team in the NFL. They're the third highest points scored with 15.8. I mean, this is just ugly.
This is a mess.
This is not an attractive game.
This game.
No, stay far away from it. Unless it's like a pick six by Mac Jones and like maybe hit that.
Like a Raiders. See, then you look at the Patriots though, and you go, well, the Patriots can make Jimmy make a mistake. It's hard. I don't know. The Raiders played better. Their defense played better than I expected.
They got Devontae Adams. That's all I'll say.
And they got Devontae Adams, and I gotta say, Juju. I don't know what happened. I know he's been dealing with some injury. I don't even think he has over 100 yards in the first 5 games. New England, I don't think they know who their number one target is outside of Hunter Henry, and they're just not giving Ramondre Stevenson the ball. And we saw what happened last week when Josh Jacobs was able to get the ball. And it interests me to see if these teams are actually going to change. We saw what Bill Belichick said. Basically, he's just going to start from scratch. And that means he probably just spent like 3 days in his locker room, writing up a new playbook, and they're going to run it on Sunday.
It's gonna be really interesting to see it. I mean, Mac Jones already has more pick sixes in Gillette Stadium than Tom Brady did in his entire career there. So it's not been looking good for Patriots fans everywhere. But you know what? It's humbling. You had 20 years of dominance. Now you get to be with regular people again.
Enjoy what me and Sean have. You see these things behind us on the wall? We've been suffering for a couple of years.
There ain't no Travis on our walls. All right. So learn to enjoy it. All right, let's keep this moving along. The Philadelphia Eagles making their way to New York to take on the Jets. Over under here, 41.5. Philly's favored in this one by -7. Now you're probably wondering -7. Why is in the blowout category? You had a -6.5 earlier. Here's why: is the Jets defense plays pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, they're unexpectedly playing well, and not because they played the Broncos last week. The Broncos are not the best, and the Jets defense did get a garbage time touchdown, which came through for a lot of people. But they seem to have played 5 times since 2007. Philly has not scored under 16 points. The Jets have never scored 20 points since 2007 against the Eagles. I actually think the Eagles are 12-0 all time against the Jets, and that's.
And I think I think they played last year or something, and I swear I feel like we mentioned this recently in one of our podcasts that they haven't.
So they played recently. 2 years ago. They won 33-18.
Yeah.
Not great. Jake Elliott, 4 field goals in the fourth quarter to just destroy them. I mean, this was a
Look, Bryce was back though last week. 22, 177, and 1. That was great. The problem is that the Eagles defense is playing well. What I like about this game is I like the under and I like the spread. I like the Jets to take this spread. I think that the Jets probably lose by 5 or 6.
And I think plus 7 and under 41.5.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a closer game. Look, Zach Wilson in 2 games. It's not against the Chiefs was by far the best game, but against Denver it was enough that the defense could rally behind and Breece Hall was able to get going. Now there's a route here where they can edge their way into the playoffs that they're able to just rally off a few wins behind their defense, kind of like what the Steelers have done the last few years, and again, things fall the right ways. What happens after Miami takes their bye week, when they have that, what happens if they slow down, what's going to happen with injuries start to pile up and fatigue piles up to fatigue, things are going to start to happen from week 6
already,
from week 6 to week 10, there's going to be a whole nother phase of football and how things change. And it's not pretty for the Jets. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying that they're winning the division. They still have Buffalo and Miami, but there's a way here for them to play fairly decent football and be in the conversation come week 12, week 13,
I agree. I think that when you look at it just on paper, you see, Philly is averaging 10 points more, but their defense is very much similar. The Jets' defensive rush yards per game has been pretty tough this season. They have been allowing about 146. Philly's only allowing about 61 yards per game on the ground. So I'm expecting a big day from DeAndre Swift. But I'm really interested to see the Jets defense going up, against, the Jets D-line versus Philly's O-line and the corners versus the receivers. I think that I want to see Garrett Wilson versus Slay and vice versa. I want to see Sauce and DJ Reed on Smith and Brown. This is going to be, I think this is going to be a dogfight, kind of like you said, definitely an under game, especially with Zach Wilson. 32nd right now in passing offense with only 160 yards per game. I mean, we say Jalen Hurts doesn't throw that much. I mean, he has the 10th best passing offense while, they have the 2nd best rushing offense. The Eagles are just straight killing it right now. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and Jalen Carter, potential defensive rookie of the year. Just going to put that out there. All right, let's move this into our games of the week. Our first one, we have the Seattle Seahawks making their way to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Over under here 46. Cincy's favored in this one by -3. Jamar Chase was back to his usual self last week. 15 receptions, 192 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And I think the most important thing that every single Bengals fans really love seeing in this one is the fact that Joe Burrow was moving around comfortably and looking healthy.
Yeah, he kind of took the Cooper Kupp approach of just taking 4 weeks to get healthy, except he played the whole time. And somehow, he maintained it. And as much as I love that, we do have to remember Seattle is coming off the bye. They're coming off a big win against the Giants last time. I'm interested to see these teams. We kind of look at these teams as each of the teams in the conference that are probably going to make more of the wild card run this year with the way they've started and with the way their divisions are looking. But I got to ask you, who do you like more? Because there's a lot of good stuff you like about the Bengals, but they're not doing it. And Seattle, they got the rest. They're kind of the underdogs in this one. They still have Geno, who was playing great, but now he's had time to rest. How do you feel about this team's?
I like Seattle in this one, especially on the road. I think that Cincinnati has been kind of hit and miss with what their team is going to be, and rightfully so with the injury to Burrow and whatnot. I like the over in this one of 46. I think that both these teams can put up points, but I like Seattle's defense just a little bit more. I think that what we saw from Witherspoon against the Giants, sorry, buddy, outside of just like the pick six, remove the pick six away from that game. And he was just all over the place, really starting to get a rhythm and feel for the NFL right now, and understanding what passing concepts are looking like when the screens are coming in. And that's when it's going to begin to really get fun for the secondary that already has one, that already played so well. So for me, I think this defense is going to be in like the difference maker for them later on in the season. I want to see a little bit more of Jackson Smith injury, but that was my favorite wide receiver coming in the league. Only has 66 yards through 5 weeks. Love to see him get going, find the end zone in this one. You know, there's a slew of talent, especially fantasy wise, coming into this game. So I think it's going to be pretty high scoring. And again, I just think it's going to be Seattle's defense making that play when it counts.
Yeah, I like the over 46. It's actually, despite a lot of the lower lines this week, I like that. You know, it's Seattle's defense. I saw what they did to my Giants. All right, they had 5 sacks and they destroyed everything, and that's great. But I got to say, Joe Burrow must be protected since he wins this game. I think Seattle has kind of figured it out. You know, they had an underwhelming start. Now I think that they can destroy this Cincinnati team from where their weakness is the offensive line. Right now when you're looking at it, Joe Burrow is like the 6th most sacked guy over the last 2 years. And, the only guy ahead of him is Geno Smith. So I'm expecting the defenses to kind of come up and pressure these quarterbacks. But like you said, many fantasy relevant guys, Joe Mixon and Kenneth Walker, DK, Tyler Lockett, start them all, Jamar, Tyler Boyd. This is going to be a week where, despite the good defenses, despite the bad offensive lines, this is when the quarterback's going to be getting them out quick, getting them to everybody, spreading it out. I think this is going to be this is what we got this game week. I think it has the potential to either be just a slugfest or one of the higher scoring games of the week.
Yeah, and I'm hoping for a gosh darn slugfest. All right, in our last game of the week, and this one could be where the defense is shining a little bit more, where the Detroit Lions making their way to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Over under here of 43.5. Detroit's favored this by -3. Probably wondering why is Detroit not favored so heavily in this one? Because they have a handful of injuries coming into this. Jahmyr Gibbs did not practice this week. That's a huge one. Brian Branch hasn't practiced so far this week. Then they have Emmanuel Mosley's out for the year, another cornerback that they lost with the full season tour. His other ACL and his other knee, just absolutely brutal for them. Buccaneers are coming off of the bye weeks to get all this extra time to prepare for this game. Could be surprisingly close in this one. I think there's a reason why it's -3, and I think it's because of that.
Yeah, no, I see a lot of lines that are kind of over here. I see, Detroit -3. I see, like they're favored to me. I think that no matter what Tampa, their defense, who has been top 10 all year, has been keeping them in these games. We kind of saw it a couple weeks ago. They were able to destroy the Saints, and then we were able to see them play the Eagles. As good as you can play the Eagles, they had watch them kind of run down the field, and it was a 2-possession game by the end. But with Detroit, they're going to have to keep them in check. We've seen Detroit in the 4th best scoring offense in the entire league, going off. They're top 10 in almost every category that matters, except for passing. So Baker could have a great opportunity here. Both middle of the pack passing defenses. I love Mike Evans this week to score. I think this is I could just see it, that this is an opportunity for him to get it done. Jared Goff, I think, has looked great over the last couple of weeks. 9 touchdowns in the first 5 weeks. And Sam Laporta ruined my parlay last week with there, so I felt bad. But 2 touchdowns, and that's 3, Sean. That's the same amount as Kyle Pitts. I know everyone's saying it, but it's not right. Somebody's got to get Kyle Pitts out of there. We got to get that another time. But I want to know. You said all these injuries. Can they just ride the back of David Montgomery, or do you think that the Bucs could, kind of trap game them in this one?
I think this has potential to be a trap game, and that's why I put it in the game of the week. I'm leaning Detroit just because that's where the logic dictates. The offense has just been playing so well. But But for me, there's just something about like this Tampa Bay team. You don't know which one you're going to get, despite the Mike Evans hamstring injury. He might not be in for this one. There's just like a weird part where, Detroit just keeps, they're riding this high. Then when, not to say like they're ever going to stumble or they're not going to, it's possible they go 16-1. Who knows? But, when is that trap game? And this feels like one of them. They're coming off this huge game. Their offense was firing on all cylinders last week. They just couldn't be stopped. Sam Laporta was completely involved. Like everything was going well despite Amon-Ra St. Brown, So it's about keeping that momentum and keeping the focus, and this just feels like one of those games where could be a slight trap for them. And, Baker and this team has played, well.
Better than we expected. Sure. Like
especially after that training camp video.
3-1 and your only losses to Philly. I don't know. I mean, he's using Evans, Godwin. They're coming up the bye. They're going to know what's up. This could definitely be a trap game. I'm kind of feeling like switching to Tampa, but I got to say, it's hard to do that. I genuinely think that Detroit has a locked and loaded team on both sides of the ball, good offensive line. I think that Tampa's defense is the thing that scares me kind of the most, and Mike Evans. I think that'll be shut down by the line for the Lions. They have a great offensive line to keep Jared Goff up, and he's been able to use guys like Josh Reynolds and Laporta. So just another opportunity, I think, for them to highlight those guys. So, give Amon-Ra his time and let David Montgomery just run the ball down everyone's throat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't use Jahmyr Gibbs. Fool everyone in fantasy and in the draft. Thank you, Dan Campbell. Do what you did with Jamal Williams last year.
We get it. We get it. You got everybody. You got him. You got us.
You fooled us. Fantasy okay. Fair enough.
And you're going to sign David Montgomery anyway.
But, I would say just keep doing it. Keep grinding. Everyone loves what Detroit's doing, including myself. Hopefully.
Wait till they're a sick 1-2 punch, though. That's what I'm saying. Just
exactly.
People don't want to wait for it to happen.
Look, I think they're going to win the division, and rightfully so. But that's all the time that we have. Thank you for listening. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Yeah, enjoy Week 6, and we got some Monday night videos coming out for you. It's going to be a sick game. Cowboys at LA Chargers. It's going to be awesome. Always check us out, Just Saying Football, on YouTube and Spotify. Get us in your ears, subscribe there. Make sure you're up to date with all of our stuff. Anything you want to check out, Just Saying, no G, WJS. On Instagram, you can check us out, get all our content and updates. Thank you guys for checking us out. Enjoy the weekend.
Enjoy.